Good afternoon, everyone, or depends on where you're joining us from. Maybe good morning to everyone. Thank you so much for joining our online event. My name is Jane. I'm from the Harrow Appi marketing team, and I'm very excited to be able to welcome you today this morning. I know that Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon is such a precious time for everyone. So thank you so much for joining us today. Today, we are going to welcome our founding headmaster, Mick Farley, to this session to talk about Harrow Appi education, especially nurturing leadership attributes. So at this moment, let me welcome Mick Farley. Good morning or good afternoon, Mick.
Good afternoon, Jane. Good morning, good afternoon, dear audience. Thank you very much for joining us on Saturday and giving up your precious time. Yes, as Jane has introduced me, I'm very proud to be the founding headmaster of Harrow Appi. Just very briefly, by means of introduction, we know that we have a range of audience participants today. Some of you new to the Harrow offering. Some of you have been very loyal to Harrow Appi and have already educated yourselves quite deeply in terms of the school's preparations and offerings. So we do point you towards YouTube and Facebook. We have a very big presence, particularly if you're new to Harrow Appi. We encourage you to educate yourself with some of the materials you can find there. Harrow Appi, we're very excited to announce, is going to open in August of 2022. First lessons on the 29th of August. And everything, touch wood, is on track. In fact, the school facility is being handed over next week. And we're right in the thick of not just talking to parents about student admissions, but also we've been recruiting some very, very good teachers and members of the founding faculty. Also, by means of introduction, I don't like doing this, but myself, my own professional background, I originate from the north of England, from the Peak District National Park, very blessed to be a country boy, just outside of the city of Sheffield. I originally came into education through teaching outdoor and adventurous activities before retraining as a proper teacher and eventually becoming a headmaster, particularly expert in curriculum development, holistic education and facilities, and also opening new schools, but more of that later. I was 6 years the headmaster of the British School in Tokyo until 2009. I was 7 years the headmaster of Harrow Bangkok until the end of 2018, when I moved to head office as the group director of operations. I've been involved in opening 5 schools in the last 18 months. The 6th school on my agenda is Harrow Appi, too good to miss. I'm going to open this one myself as the founding headmaster. I'm thrilled at the prospect of combining 3 of my loves, high quality international education, with Japan, a country my family and I were very happy in, we flourished in, and also returning to education in the great outdoors in nature. If we move on, the presentation today is not a general presentation. We're actually getting into some detail now with regards to the Harrow Appi offering. So I say again, audience members, if you'd like more general information about the Harrow Appi programme, I refer you to our presence online, and also encourage you to sign up for some of the coming events. But in this presentation, we're going to talk about the development of leadership attributes, leadership behaviours that our graduates, we believe, need in order not just to be successful at university, but in their adult life in this competitive, interconnected 21st century in which we live. This image then, Headmaster's House, sorry, the old schoolhouse, Harrow on the Hill, the boys in their Harrow hats, heading off to lessons, and this is where it all began. Harrow School celebrates 450 years of providing high quality education this year that Harrow Appi opens, and has for many, many decades been known for its development of adults. Actually, Harrow School in London is all male, so men who go on to influence, who have gone on to influence the world in which we live. So if we move on, we see a slide that exemplifies that with displayed there. 4 of the giants of old, as we call them, the old Harrovians, Lord Byron, the poet, Sir Winston Churchill, twice Prime Minister of Britain and voted by the British people as the greatest Briton, Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, and actually a great educational reformer himself, and Lord Rayleigh, scientist, physicist, and winner of the Nobel Prize. Now, I'm aware that you might get the impression that we're resting on our laurels, so to speak. These look like very, very old Harrovians. So more recently, Harrow continues with its tradition of developing graduates, old Harrovians, who leave the school and have a huge impact on the global society. So on the left-hand side, a very successful actor that many of you will know, Benedict Cumberbatch, and on the right-hand side there, well, certainly one of the best rugby players in the world, possibly the best second row in the world, but if there's Welsh members of the audience, you might argue that Arwen Jones is his equal. Maro Itoje in Japan for the World Cup, pretty much solo, single-handedly defeated the All Blacks in the semi-finals, wasn't able to repeat that performance in the final nonetheless. So if we move on then to the Harrow International family, who have developed this motto, educational excellence for life and for leadership. And that's not a motto that hangs on the wall forgotten. That's been very carefully crafted and developed over the years, drawing on what we believe is the best of Harrovian DNA and delivering those characteristics in an international setting here in East Asia. And moving on, we believe that a Harrow education has to develop core values, and we identified 4 of them in its young people and in its graduates. I mean, let's face it, if young people leave their secondary schooling with a deep foundation of the values of courage, honour, humility, and fellowship, they're going to be very, very well prepared to flourish and be successful in their adult lives. Moving then to some of the work that we've specifically done on developing the leadership behaviours then of our young people. We take our responsibilities very, very seriously. We don't use the P word very much at Harrow, but there is no doubt that our young people and our students and our graduates are privileged, and whether they like it or not, are going to go on to positions of responsibility and influence in their adult lives. And we believe that we then have a responsibility to develop in them the behaviours that are displayed on the screen there. You can read, but I am going to read them nonetheless because it's very central to the presentation that I'm providing you. So the behaviours, one could argue that there are many behaviours that a young person needs to develop in preparation for a future of leadership and contribution. We have, however, made the judgment that the 6 behaviours on the screen, contributing positively to community, applying knowledge with compassion, solving problems both collaboratively and creatively, facing challenges with determination, and making just choices should be prioritised and should be developed in our educational programmes in our Harrow International schools. And that's what we're preparing to do in Harrow Appi. Shortly, we're going to show you a video clip that explains to you in images the offerings that we're preparing for in Harrow Appy. The vast, what we call co-curricular, extracurricular programs, very broad in their range. And also the supercurricular programs that academically stretch students. So let's show the video. I hope it gives an impression of the breadth and depth of the co-curricular offering at Harrow Appy.
Harrow Appy students will enjoy two distinct co-curricular, that's extracurricular seasons, the white and the green. The white season focuses on winter sports. A race academy will cater for elite skiers and snowboarders, and mountaineering will challenge the more adventurous. More than just for fun, our white season programme will be central to the holistic development of well-rounded students. There will be opportunities to ski as often as 4 times a week if the students wish. The green season will embrace the great outdoors, focused on golf, tennis, cycling, and of course, getting into the mountains. The golf and tennis academies will provide professional coaching, utilising outstanding facilities, including the immaculate 36-hole golf course. Whilst the programmes for road cycling, for instance, climbing over Mount Hachimantai, and mountain biking, definitely in the forest trails and on the ski hill, will be wonderful. Additional to the sports academy programmes, students will have the opportunity to join a wide range of other activities. For instance, in innovation and digital technologies, music and other creative arts, and of course, and very importantly, service to their community. For example, in an old people's home or other charitable work. The supercurriculum. To ensure our students are academically stretched to match their intellectual curiosity, the supercurriculum will provide activities that foster academic endeavour beyond the examination courses. Students will engage in supercurricular activities which inspire their curiosity. They'll solve difficult problems and will be challenged to apply their knowledge in new situations. Through these opportunities, the development of additional skills such as debating, teamwork, problem solving, critical thinking, and creative pursuits is assured. These skills have lifelong value, and good universities are always on the lookout for candidates who possess them. Supercurriculum activities and events at Harrow Appy will include, for example, debate club, coding challenges, the engineering society, and entrepreneurship or technological competitions.
Thank you so much for a great introduction about our leadership attributes, Mick. It was really exciting to see the variety and very different experiences that are offered at Harrow International Schools, including Harrow Appy. However, I'm a little bit concerned or a little bit questionable that how do we know as a school that students are developing their leadership attributes in these different programs? Because I know that you're great experience, Harrow Educator and also leader, that we know you can help students develop. But as a school, how do we help all students who are involved in this program still developing different areas of leadership attributes?
Well, that's a very useful comment, Jane. Thank you for making it. And that's what I'd like to go on to explain now, because ladies and gentlemen of the audience, there is a huge range of opportunities available to our students, and we've got a very large staff delivering these programmes, and we've realised that it's absolutely crucial that all these activities, competitions, collaborations are pulled together into a structure. So on the screen now, on the left-hand side, you see the student booklet front page of the Leadership and Service curriculum. So it's this programme that allows for the development of leadership skills in a way which is recorded, in a way that allows students not just to take part in many activities and record their participation, but crucially to reflect on that particular activity and what they have learned from it. So it's through the Leadership and Service curriculum that students are able to track their progress in developing their leadership attributes. Also, crucially, we're able to make sure that all attributes, not just one or two, are developed. I should explain that the programme is structured across the 3 phases of the school. So there is a prep level leadership and service curriculum for students aged 11 to 13. There's then a senior, or SR5 as we call it in Harrow, leadership and service programme for students aged 13 to 16, and then the sixth form aged 16 to 18 have their own programme. Now, if we move on to the next slide, what we start to explain there is how we very carefully make sure that students don't over-specialise within areas of particular preference. So in developing the 6 leadership attributes, we absolutely insist that students must develop those attributes across a range of themes. You and I know, dear audience, that sporty kids want to do everything through sport and physical activity and physical engagement, and arty teenagers want to be creative and arty in their approach to everything. And in actual fact, we have a responsibility to make sure that a range of approaches are used and pursued. So we do insist that all our students use use 6 different approaches in developing their leadership behaviours. And there they are on the right-hand side of the screen. The super curriculum, academic enrichment, sports and physical pursuits, creative and performing arts, communication and endeavour, community service, very, very important and a fundamental of Harrow education. And then, of course, we need a miscellaneous category for the many other types of activity. And if we move on, again, just really to explain a little bit about structure. And I'm sorry for the picture on the left-hand side, but it's a particular favourite of mine. House Sports Day and the house sports leaders dressed as mascots and getting slightly over-competitive with each other. But in terms of the structure then of the leadership and service curriculum, so within each phase of the school, prep, seniors and sixth form, all students have the opportunity to at least pass, if not gain merit or even distinction within the programme. And in actual fact, the pass level, the basic level, is an absolute expectation, and we work very carefully to make sure that all students reach at least that level. So again, moving on, what we thought would be useful to you, the audience, would be for us to actually exemplify 3 case studies demonstrating how a particular activity is used is used to develop leadership behaviours and also gain credit, gain merits within the leadership and service curriculum. So that's what we'll do now. And first of all, moving on and focusing on the very important behaviour, contributing positively to the community, something that we will ensure we do as an absolute priority in Appi, in Iwate Prefecture, in Tohoku, where Harrow will have a very big presence and absolutely wants to engage with and contribute to the community. So this is something that's very important that all Harrow students develop, but I would say particularly in our new school in northern Japan. So what we're going to do is have a look at how we develop this attribute, and you can see in the second column to the left an example of the range of opportunities that students would have. And I do want to emphasise, this is only an example. There are many, many other ways that we will develop and the students themselves will identify that will allow them to contribute positively to the community. But let's focus in on particularly this activity, Model United Nations, MUN. Now, some audience members will be familiar with the Model United Nations format. It's, let's call it a debate competition. It can be inter-school or intra-school or across schools, inter-school, where students are given a challenge of needing to represent a certain position in debate. Importantly, they're not able to choose that position. So they may find themselves defending intensive beef agriculture in the pampas of Argentina, or something very controversial, even more controversial, like needing to justify the Iranian nuclear program. They're given that position, they need to prepare their argument, and then they go into competition, they go into debate. And of course, they develop some very, very valuable skills in these events. The skill, of course, of oracy, public speaking, the skill of developing and presenting a persuasive argument. And of course, the experience they gain as a global citizen, representing these various issues around the world. Now, the image, or the images on the screen, are taken from an event that actually Harrow Bangkok hosted. Harrow hosts its own family, Model United Nations, face-to-face in more normal times. But Harrow International Schools also take part in national and regional Model United Nations competitions. And actually, on the right-hand side there, you see Harrow International students taking part as members of the Secretariat, the organising committee of this particular Model United Nations, which gains them great merit after they've gone through the process, completed the organisation, completed the event, and then crucially sat with members of staff, so perhaps members of the leadership and service team, or the master or mistress in terms of the Model United Nations debate competition, or possibly with their housemaster or housemistress. They are then able to gain 6 merits that go towards their leadership and service award. Moving on to a different programme, to a different leadership attribute, applying knowledge with compassion. So we don't like to use that P word, privilege, but we do accept that these students who attend Harrow International Schools come from a position of privilege and are going to move, whether they like it or not, to situations of responsibility and leadership in their adult life. So it's very important that as they develop skills, specialisms, and talents, that they know how to use them well, compassionately, to contribute rather than to indulge. Again, down the second left-hand column there, you see an example of the range of opportunities that students can take part in to develop this particular attribute. And we're going to focus at the bottom there on the creative subjects, or the creative and artistic areas. And more specifically, if we move to the next screen, the house competition for music. House shout, as we call it, although house shout can involve violin playing, participating in an ensemble, or even an orchestra, as well as singing. And again, we demonstrate on the screen there that not only is this an opportunity for within their house the musicians to gain credit and kudos amongst their peer group, but also by participating, they gain 3 points, merits towards their leadership and service award. The third example focuses on a very important attribute, resilience, facing challenges with determination. Again, you see the range of opportunities there, but we're going to focus down at the bottom there on endurance events. And if we move to the next slide, I'm going to talk a little bit about the event as we adopted it in Harrow, Bangkok, called by the Harrovians the Long Ducker. Probably given that name because Harrow boys traditionally for many, many years have run from central London all the way out to Harrow on the hill, by which time 10 miles more or less in, they're absolutely exhausted, I'm sure very hot. So traditionally have jumped in the duck pond to cool off, hence the name the Long Ducker. In Bangkok, we extracted the essence of that endurance event, but adapted it as a 50-kilometre charitable bicycle ride to raise funds for one of the house charities, Rainbow House Orphanage. You can see some children from that orphanage on the right-hand side of the screen. I should emphasise that one of the houses of the school had a long-term relationship with Rainbow House, with students from that Harrow House going into Rainbow House very frequently and across many years to build very strong and authentic relationships. This wasn't just a one-off. Participation, completion hopefully of Ride for Rainbow gives 4 credits. Before we move on, I just want to emphasise that we're going to take this tradition, the Long Ducker, to Appi and slightly revolutionise it in that we'll be running 2 events through the year in Appi, a white Long Ducker and a green Long Ducker. And in the winter, the students will be climbing Mount Appi and skiing back down. In the summer, there's a beautiful mountain road that winds its way all the way around the back of the Mount Hachimantai Massif and then continues round and back to the school. So two versions of the Long Ducker slated for Harrow Appi. So this is a very complex programme that I'm describing here, and it needs effective leadership, management and staffing. So if we move on, I'm very proud to be able to introduce to the audience David Fitzgerald, already appointed as the Head of Leadership and Service in Harrow Appi. You can see his bio up there on the screen. Very importantly, he comes from a strong background of house and boarding education, and crucially, several years of experience at the Swiss Mountain School, Adlon College, as their director of summer school. And moving on again, I want to make the important point that David and his team will be working in close collaboration with the housemasters and the house mistresses to oversee the progress of the students, make sure that student reflection, so important, takes place so that the students really do learn from these experiences that they're enjoying. Also, the housemaster or housemistress and his or her team monitor for the balance I was talking about earlier, ensuring that students don't over-specialise. There's an awful lot of organisation needed, as you can imagine, to get students into retirement homes or up mountains. So it's the house teams that make sure that the students are well prepared mentally and physically, are safe, are in the right place at the right time with the right equipment. And of course, you need to know how these programs are going, and it's through the house parents that you're kept informed, excuse me. And this involvement of the house staff in closely individually supporting the students, I think well demonstrates what we describe as the close personal tutoring approach. So making sure that very individual and bespoke pastoral support is provided to each girl and each boy, in this case, to make sure that they progress within the leadership and service curriculum. So there you have a brief explanation of the leadership and service programme. And of course, through these experiences, our students develop as leaders to their own community. So they become leaders as prefects, perhaps leaders within their house, or even senior students with responsibility as head girl, head boy, deputy head girl, deputy head boy. And it's marvellous to see them progress to the point where they're able to take these experiences of the world to a university interview. Yes, they're getting outstanding grades. I'm sorry to say, ladies and gentlemen, many boys and girls around the world are getting A grades, and it's this that makes the difference. The A grades might get the student to the admission table, but it's these types of programs and the reflections that the students have had and been able to make that actually allow them to talk with confidence about themselves and their opinion and position in the world. And that's what leads to actually access, admission into the world's top universities. And once we get there, we know that the skills and behaviours that our students have developed make sure that they're successful when they get to university, and more importantly, contribute and flourish as adults in this crazy 21st century in which we're living. So lovely pictures there on the screen. On the left-hand side there, speech day, the boy and girl who were judged the best all-round students that academic year. Boy on the left, my deputy head boy, went off to Ivy League, and girl on the right, senior prefect, went off actually to my mum's old college, Homerton College in Cambridge. And you can see a hugely proud headmaster there in the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pause there. That, I think, has been a rapid, I hope not too detailed, explanation of how we develop these leadership behaviours in our young people, and the way that they're supported and nurtured through these programmes to emerge prepared to contribute to life as leaders.
Thank you so much, Mick, for a wonderful presentation. It was very informative for us to learn more about what kind of curriculum structure we have at the school to support and really put students in knowledge of their leadership skills. And I think this presentation, I'm very sure that provoked parents with lots of questions. So right now, at this time, we'd like to move on to Q&A session with parents. But before we do that, let me quickly introduce about our admission process. We have already started accepting students for Harrow Appi, which it will be opening, as Mick mentioned, 2022 August, which is this year. It's very exciting. The construction has been going very well. We are hoping to get keys to the campus in February, and at that point, we are also planning to start hosting campus visit event as well. But before that, let me walk you through our admission process, which is called Harrow Future Star Program. First step, which is online application, which is already available from our website. If you're interested in it, you can find an online application from our official website, or you can always email our admissions team and ask for the link directly as well. The first step, online application, and as soon as you complete your submission, you will gain access to the online and English writing test schedules where you can choose date and time that suits your child and family, which means that there is no set date for test. This is always available for parents as long as they finish the online application. The first assessment is online test to assess your child's cognitive and non-cognitive abilities, as well as the writing skills. This writing skills will give us a good idea of how comfortable your child is with writing English, and also this will also give us a good idea of your child's English abilities. And once you pass the step 2, the first assessment, the final assessment is online interview, most likely with Mick. He is always very excited to meet every single applicant, get to know them individually, so that we don't get to know your child from just academic perspective, but from 306, the holistically. We really value the holistic education is important, but as much as holistic education is important, holistic assessment is also important. So we take that into admission process as well. If you have any further questions, please feel to ask us during our QA session. Now we are going to move on to our QA session with Mick. If you have any questions, please feel free to send us through the chat function, which you can access from the bottom of your screen by clicking chat, and then we will be able to read your questions here. Let's see, while we wait for our questions to come in, shall we start from some of the commonly asked questions, Mick?
Yes, I think that's wise.
So I think even though this is English-speaking audience, parents are always concerned about their child's English ability and how much English will be required for the admission process.
So English is a key component of the test in terms of judgment of, it's from Cambridge, it's called the CAT 4 test, as well as a piece of written English being submitted. And the interview, of course, is carried out in English. The level of English is crucial. English is the language of instruction. It's also, in such an international community, the language of inclusion and the language of the boarding house. So we need to make sure that students have sufficient English to access the curriculum and to familiarise themselves with this new learning opportunity. That said, we have very well trained, very experienced teachers who will focus on the development of English once students arrive. And we have proved success that the model works very well in terms of our ability to take in students who are speaking English as a mother tongue alongside students who are still developing their English. And the result is outstanding in terms of academic outcomes, but also in terms of the development of English of those less capable. So it's important, we judge it, but we also know that English will be developed once the students join Harrow Appy, if they're not native speakers.
Thank you very much. And now we started receiving a lot of questions. This is very exciting. Yeah. Let's start from the first question. And when does the school year start and end? And also, I'm sorry that I might have missed this information. Is this a full boarding school?
Harrow Appy is a full boarding school. No matter whether the student involved comes from Morioka, Tokyo, or Singapore, all students will board. This is a full 7-day programme and works very well because we know that all students will participate in all the programme. The school year, from the very end of August, first day of lessons will be the 29th of August 2022, going through to the end of June, final day school being speech day and the awards given at speech day. It's a trimester structure, so 3 semesters, 3 terms, with long holidays, summer, December, early January, and April, and also short breaks in October and in February.
Thank you. And next question is about teachers' recruitment. It can be difficult to hire international teachers, particularly during this pandemic times. How many of your teachers have you already hired?
So we've done, I'm really pleased to say, really well. I'm frankly thrilled by not just the calibre, very, very high, but also the number. So we're up to about 70% of positions filled. We're halfway through our second recruitment round as I speak. I was interviewing 3 teachers yesterday. But we were able to go to the market very, very early because we had developed our plan. We knew that we needed to recruit, so we were busy interviewing teachers as early as September and October. I'm thrilled at the response. As the questioner suggests, it's not been the easiest time for international schools because of the pandemic and travel restrictions. However, we've recruited very, very strongly. We've got teachers coming from within the Harrow family, Harrow Bangkok, of course, but also Harrow Hong Kong, Harrow UK. We've had very strong interest from the UK independent sector, private school sector in the UK, and also from good international schools. I want to impress on the audience, I work very, very hard at teacher recruitment. It's absolutely crucial that the calibre of the teachers is very, very high. Without good teachers, we're not going to be providing the quality of education we've been describing. And secondly, that the fit is right. I mean, this is a full boarding school at the moment, covered in snow in a relatively remote location. These teachers are going to work together, live together, play together. They need to get on. They need to be the right fit. So we work very, very hard on the recruitment to make sure we've conducted due diligence and we know what we need to know about the teachers who are experienced, who are coming from qualified and experienced, and coming from very strong professional backgrounds.
So speaking of full boarding education, the next question is actually about boarding. Thank you very much for your presentation. Could we know more about the value of boarding or full boarding school? What do you think is the biggest difference between community and day school versus full boarding school?
I would like to identify 2 things. I could identify more, but let's focus on 2 things. And I'd like to say to this questioner that actually I speak as a parent as well as an educator. I have 2 daughters. I'm very proud of my daughters. Both of them came through my schools. Both of them did well academically. Interestingly, actually, both, of course, first language English speakers in international schools with a large proportion of children speaking English as an additional language. I'm sounding too proud now, but didn't receive any additional tuition and both achieved first and master's degree level in their higher education. So I speak from experience because one of my daughters subsequently went to a boarding school, the other one didn't. I would suggest that the 2 things I want to highlight as a full boarding offering is number one, the range of programming that becomes available. The possibilities are just far broader in terms of having more time with the student from early morning till late evening, through the weekends. So the possibilities are far, far greater to offer academic extension. Engineering club, coding club doesn't have to be at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, immediately after the end of the school day. It can be after supper at 8 o'clock in the evening. There can be some additional chemistry tutoring at 7 o'clock in the morning in the chemistry lab before lessons start. So the fact that you have this captive audience of the boarders on the campus 24/7 just gives so many more opportunities for educational programs. I could talk a lot more on that. The second point I'd want to make is inevitably, because young people as teenagers are removed from their families for a big proportion of the year, with a lot of support and a little bit of homesickness, they develop a lot of independence. They become self-starters, they're able to organise themselves, they become more capable of leading their own lives, if you like, which proves to be invaluable preparation for the university experience to come. Within each boarding house is a community, if you like, a family within the family of the school, and the older students, as they mature, take on more responsibility, particularly in support of the younger students. So these, well, we've talked about the leadership behaviours, but also independence and responsibility develops in these young people because they're boarding. That's what I would identify as the two key definers, but there are more that I could talk about in terms of the advantages of boarding. It's not for all families. It's a big decision to take, to at such a beautiful age, separate yourself from these wonderful teenagers. But there are many advantages to boarding education for the student.
If I may add, from a perspective of someone who actually lived on campus with students and saw the student development on campus at a different full boarding school, I think the friendship they developed is just another level. It's an exciting environment for students as well, not just from an academic perspective, but from the friendship perspective. They have lots of families on campus. Moving on to the next question. How many students will we be welcoming when we open the school, and how big school is going to be in the future, and what is the male-female split, and also the nationality ratio and breakdown? Yeah.
So we'll open year 7 to year 10, the launch of the GCSE programs. That's age 11 to 14. We'd be very pleased to open with 200 students. Obviously, that number is not yet secured. But that's what we're targeting across those 4 year groups. 250 would be fantastic, 180, not the end of the world. Male-female split, well, we can control that very carefully, of course, because we're opening 4 boarding houses, 2 for girls, 2 for boys. So we will be very close to 50-50. In terms of nationalities, no doubt the pandemic is having an influence here. To date, recruitment of students is demonstrating we're probably going to open at about 60% Japanese students, 40% the rest, and the rest is it really is the rest, very international, to answer that question. So we're receiving a lot of interest from around the region, Singapore, Hong Kong, Taiwan, mainland China, Malaysia, Thailand, and just about everywhere else around the region. We're also receiving a lot of interest from regional expatriates, particularly Western regional expatriates. So we've got Kiwis and Aussies, Canadians and Americans, Brits, and then kind of just about every combination therein. There's also, of course, a fair smattering of staff children heading our way. So it will be a truly international school. I do think the pandemic is resulting in Japanese families staying at home, so being interested in Harrow Appy, where perhaps in other years they've been sending their son or daughter overseas, and perhaps a little bit of reluctance regionally to travel. And certainly what we are describing here is not just a national boarding school for Japan, but a regional boarding school. And in the future, I'm sure we will revert to 50-50 Japanese versus the rest in terms of our student profile.
And a quick additional question regarding the nationality breakdown. Within those 60% of Japanese that we currently accepted, does that include Japanese students who were born outside of Japan but still have Japanese nationality, to Japanese students who are like maybe a parent, Japanese parent, and one Japanese non-Japanese parent? Is that including the 60% or do we count that as 40%?
So certainly Japanese, 100% Japanese, kids coming from Japanese private or state schools. Also the Japanese returnees, Japanese passport holding Japanese returnees, we would count within the 60%. And we're getting a lot of interest from returnees as well as Japanese kids, students based in Japan. The third category, a little bit harder to define, you know, is that a Japanese child or a Thai child? And actually it does vary slightly family to family. And the defining factor there is Japanese ability, whether they're speaking Japanese. We should mention to the audience, I mean, this is an English-speaking presentation, but the Japanese program in the school will be very, very strong. We've engineered significant time within the school week to make sure that the Japanese program will be very, very strong and native speakers will be able to maintain their native Japanese ability, as well as new to Japanese students having the opportunity to develop very strong Japanese. And I should mention the Chinese program will also be very, very strong.
Thank you. That was actually my next question, but you already answered it. Wonderful. So let's move to the next question. Thank you for the useful presentation. We'd like to understand what kind of preparation would typically be expected prior to the online assessment or admission process, I think in general.
So the assessment is an assessment of intellectual ability and English and character. So in terms of intellectual ability, we use the CAT-4 test. It's a well reputed and quite a well known online testing platform that effectively is a test of intelligence across a range of measures and activities. So really, in terms of preparation for that aspect of the test, to keep up with the students' learning generally, so that their brain is well exercised, not to apply too much pressure, to make sure, you know, good night's sleep and then a good environment for the test. It's kind of those basic things just to optimize performance. In terms of English, this is an English-speaking audience, but obviously we are considering students from many backgrounds. If your son or your daughter is not a first language English speaker, yeah, definitely in the run-in, lots of English exposure in terms of well, I don't need to tell this audience, but lots of talking to your son and daughter in English, but also the writing assessment is not a rigorous assessment of writing level, but it is an indicator of the quality of written English from that student. So that's important as well in preparation, that the boy or the girl, your boy or your girl, is doing some English writing. And then I think in terms of the interview, we're not looking to catch anyone out. Just let your son or your daughter be confident that they can look me in the eye. That's something I'm very much looking for, into the camera, unfortunately, but looking in the eye, holding the conversation, being confident to be themselves, because that's the best thing, isn't it? That we can judge whether your son or your daughter A is going to benefit from a Harrow education, and B is going to contribute to this community. So I need to get to know your son or your daughter. So no performance. Let encourage your son or your daughter to let go a little bit, enjoy the process. I'll be gentle with them and be themselves.
Thank you. It's exciting to know that actually there are a few questions mentioning that they are watching this session with their son or daughter. So thank you so much for joining our session, students. So let's move on to some fun questions from students about our program. Do we have rugby as a sport, and also do we offer a strong STEAM or STEM program? And lastly, can you talk more about what a regular student day look like?
Yes, so I mean, this is a Harrow school. I'm an ex-rugby player. Just about everything that's worked with my body goes back to rugby. But I hesitate to add students and parents. Rugby's a lot safer now than it was when I was a lad, on the muddy fields of the north of England with bad referees. Yeah, we have rugby. We have a very strong rugby master appointed, actually, and we will be very, very pleased to develop a series, I'm sure, of rugby opportunities for our students. STEM is actually a building just over Jane's right shoulder. It's absolutely in the heart. Yeah, well done, Jane. Stop there. That is the STEM Centre. That's the Innovation Hub. Actually, just the next one over. But yeah, exactly right. The Innovation Hub was always designed as one of the centres in the school that will be a fulcrum. So multidisciplinary, with the science department and the creative arts departments right next door. With a workshop, resistant materials, right in the heart of the Innovation Hub, but around the outside then clean areas for coding, graphic design, computer-aided design. It's a super facility. In fact, we took the architects to London, and our design was based on the, it's actually called the Churchill Centre on the hill. Typical day is full and fun. It's never boring. So starts early. In fact, I would encourage you students to have a look at YouTube or Facebook, I think more on YouTube, where there are a couple of videos we've put together describing the day, or a typical day in the life of a boarder, that may well start as early as 6 or 6:15. Many students having activities even before breakfast, swim coaching, for example, breakfast, back to the boarding house for morning briefing from the housemaster or housemistress, HM as we call them, in the common room of the house, which might be general information giving. Mr. Farley, the headmaster, has been very disappointed with the quality of uniforms. Boys, please make sure your top buttons done up. Girls in the lower sixth, we've noticed that your skirts are becoming a little bit too short. Your house mistress is going to be talking to you about that. It might be a protocol around the heavy snowfall we had last night, and making sure that you're all ready with the right footwear for the day ahead. Or it might be a more general message about the coming formal dinner on the weekend to come, and the preparations that are needed by your house, because you're actually hosting it and giving your speeches. Into the day, more lessons in the morning than afternoon. We're building the timetable at the moment, playing around with. We haven't quite decided whether we'll have 40-minute periods or 1-hour periods. There are pros and cons for both. Into then lunch, very important, in the canteen, right in the heart of the school. A very busy time with all sorts of things going on, from sales of cupcakes, charity raising for a house charity, to a jazz ensemble playing to accompany the eaters at lunchtime. Lunches are always really busy in the school. Into a couple of lessons in the afternoon, likely to be 2 lessons early afternoon, before then going into the co-curricular, super curricular programs. We talked about that in the video. So straight into a busy afternoon of all sorts of things that I don't need to list here because we've been talking about them. Back to the house for what we would call tea and prep. So the matron of the house will be waiting for you, making sure you're okay, making sure you have what you need for the rest of your day. Just a quick catch up, perhaps a look at your homework diary to know what you need to be focused on in prep. So then prep itself, so prep is supervised homework. Thank you, Jane, where we have perhaps a scientist, an English teacher, and a mathematician in the school library to help you with your homework, just if you need a nudge or ask a question. As you become older, more mature students are able to do their homework in their own rooms in the boarding house. And then who knows, as we're demonstrating there on the screen, at the end of the day, there might be an additional activity such as a super curriculum, I don't know, a visiting lecturer, perhaps a politician or a sports person, or someone beaming in online to give an inspirational talk, or perhaps something that had been recorded. Everyone goes to the library and watches a talk about a particular theme. So a pretty full day before digital devices taken off you. You don't take them to bed, boys and girls, and lights out. Okay, I hope that gives you a sense, but thank you for putting that up, Jane. At the weekends then, of course, much more focused on co-curricular and super curricular and house activities. Lots of skiing in the winter, in the PE curriculum and in the co-curricular opportunities, lots of getting into nature in the summer. Look at that scenery behind Jane, it's right outside our door.
Thank you very much, Mick. I think we were able to go through all the questions we received, and also this is perfect that it's time. Mick, it's sad to say goodbye, but if you have any final comments, words, messages to students and parents, that'd be wonderful to receive.
Well, it's been a real pleasure. Actually, Jane, I'd like you, if you don't mind, to put up the closing slide that we used in the presentation. That's lovely. I do very much like those images, not just because I know those boys and that girl, but just so that we can dwell for a moment on the looks on their faces. So head held high, chin out, open to the world, open to their future. They're wonderful images, and they give me a real thrill. These are boys and girls who aren't just proud of their achievements, they're confident that they're well prepared for what lies ahead in their life. It's these programs we've been describing that get these students to that place. And I'm really excited at the prospect of bringing the education we've been describing to Japan, to Iwate Prefecture, in this full boarding school, Harrow Appi, that we've been describing to you. The last thing I'd want to say, ladies and gentlemen, is actually you're all in different and unique circumstances, and we very much welcome an individual conversation with me about your son or your daughter, your aspirations and your circumstances. So do feel free to reach out, and we can book a one-to-one call if you would like to. But for now, thank you for giving up so much of your Saturday. It's been very, 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 very appreciated. Yeah, no, happy to hand back to you.
Sorry, I'm sorry. The last question, sorry, I forgot to go through the one last question. Do we offer scholarship or bursaries?
Yes, we do offer scholarships. I tend to differentiate. Bursaries are actually for the existing community if there's a change of circumstance. So it's scholarships we're focused on. Yes, we will be launching scholarships in February. We know that they will be in the normal areas, if you like, of sport, creative arts, and probably we're going to have some scholarships that are particularly tailored to the situation in Iwate Ken. So we would like to have scholarships related to the Great East Japan earthquake and tsunami. What have I touched on? Sport, creative arts. There will be academic scholarships as well, probably within defined areas. Science, for example, mathematics. But ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes open for details on scholarships. We're working on the programs at the moment and always intended to launch them in February.
And bursaries?
Bursaries, yes, as I say, Jane and audience, we run bursaries as support for our existing community. So if I just clarify, Scholarships we see as opportunities for students to apply who have particular skills or attributes, and we will be issuing that, resulting in a fee dispensation, and we'll be issuing or launching those programs in February. Bursaries, Harrow sees as a responsible support for the existing community. So if there was a girl in, for example, a girl in year 9 who had an unfortunate tragedy, God forbid, of one of her parents passing away, and the financial circumstance of the family changed, then we have a bursaries committee that would consider our responsibilities to that existing member of the community. So we don't apply bursaries at admission, we apply scholarships at admission. I hope that's clear.
Thank you so much. So now, sorry to bother your, sorry for interrupting your final message. It was such a great message, and I just wanted to answer the final questions. That has been said, Mick is always happy to answer your questions, or happy to meet you individually to answer any questions or any concerns you have individually anytime. So please feel free to reach out to us by either emailing to us, or if you are interested in receiving any further information about upcoming events or the scholarship program or admission information, we always encourage people to register on our OA application site, which also allows people to have mailing or be on our mailing list. This is a great way to receive the most updated information from us with priority. And also we also announce some of the exclusive information to our mailing list audience as well. If you're interested in starting your application right away today, we're also happy to encourage you to go on to our application site and start the process. Our admission team is always there for you to support and provide information, support in English, Japanese, and Chinese. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be heading to Tokyo and Osaka this month and next month. So if you have time and would like to come meet our admission teams and also myself, we would like to also encourage people to go onto our event registration page today to register. And because due to our pandemic situation, we will be unfortunately limiting the seats so that this will be a very tight event. So if you're interested in it, it's great to get on the website today and book your seat. And we are looking forward to meet you in the near future. Thank you everyone again for joining our event on your busy weekend. Hopefully you will have a lovely weekend ahead of you. Mick, thank you so much for joining our event today.
Thank you very much, Jane. Thank you very much, everyone. I do hope I meet you in person.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.